What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. And this is part of the Top Women Leaders Series and Chicago Business Leader Series. And before I formally introduce Peggy and Mavely, I always like to point out, Peggy, some other episodes that are cool that people should check out. Lee Richter, that built and sold a veterinarian hospital, has started a number of other successful businesses in the pet space, which we'll talk a little bit about because Peggy has some companies in that space that they've helped. And Marissa Levin talked about how to create an exceptional advisory board and about beating cancer. You can check that out. And Peggy has created amazing advisory board. So we'll talk about some of the people on that, including Tim Connors and some other people. And before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships, partnerships. And we do that by helping you run your podcast. And, you know, Peggy, the same thing I think is for you. The number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships and to profile them, to shout from the rooftops what they're doing, what their company is doing, so other people can find out about it. So if you thought about podcasting, go to rise25.com. We've been doing it for over a decade. I was saying it before people even knew what a podcast was. I was saying everyone should have a podcast. So if you have questions, go to rise25.com, contact us. And a big thank you to Haley Zolo, who introduced today's guest. She's principal at Starting Line, a Chicago-based early-stage venture capital fund. They've invested in companies like Cameo, Catch Co. Ross Gordon founded as a good friend. Spot Hero, Jeremy Smith's been on the show as well as Ross. So Peggy O'Flaherty, co-founder of Mavely with Sean O'Brien, Evan Wray. Peggy's a serial entrepreneur with 3 successful exits. She co-founded OneParish before growing the faith, an app designed to foster engagement with church communities. And Mavely helps build growth opportunities for millions of retailers and entrepreneurs by fostering the relationship between brands and their advocates. And Peggy's going to get deeper with that. But they have a community of over 25,000 creators and entrepreneurs, over 200 brands. And she's really built a career on bringing together brands and women. And the most impressive out of everything, Peggy, in my opinion, is you're a mom of 5. So I'm not sure how you do it all, but thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I was really looking forward to this morning. And trust me when I tell you, I was shuffling off everybody to school with their lunches in the school bus to be able to get ready to be here and share with your listeners. So
it's tough. How do you do it as a mom of 5? I mean, I have 2, and some mornings I'm not even sure how we get out the door.
I think maybe in a past life I was in the military, because I think I have one of the words that I live by is the word discipline, and not disciplining, but the idea of a disciplined life. So the idea of having, some goals for our family. We have a lot of, structure within our day to be consistent, so that, people don't have to run around and find their shoes in the morning if we always leave our shoes in the right spot. We don't have to run around and find where's the keys if we keep the keys in the right spot. And, taking time to be prepared on Sunday nights for the week, the night before for the next morning. So, we have like a regiment of a disciplined life that just leads to everybody kind of pulling their weight and makes life a little easier.
So tell people a little about Mavely and what you do.
Oh, sometimes I think I actually have one of the best jobs in the world. Mavely is basically a technology company that brings together all kinds of brands and women. I think you said something like 25 or 30,000. We are now over 60,000 women. And our women actually tell brand stories across social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, across blogs, and even in their circle, because we believe that a woman can have influence even though she may not be an influencer. And by doing so, she can really impact brands, their fourth quarter goals, their sales objectives, and even just their mission.
Women have the most influence. Peggy, but let's talk about an example. Tide, for example, Procter and Gamble.
Yes. Procter and Gamble has had very successful types of campaigns, and we see their campaigns, on TV. We see their campaigns at the grocery store. We see them even on social. But Procter and Gamble has a particular new product that they were trying to drive awareness with a particular user. And although they tried influencer marketing and they tried some digital marketing, they had a very specific niche that they came to me and said, Peggy, we really want to find like a soccer mom or a hockey mom, or people who have a lake house and they have towels that get kind of musty smelling. Their product, Tide One Wash Miracle, has some very specific science around it that handles musty odors. So I went out for them and I found 75 women, connected them to the brand. The brand did kind of like a live commercial, a training session to inspire them and educate them. Then those 75 women went out onto social. They started sharing those brand stories and what makes that product unique. It drove a ton of user-generated content, brand awareness, and ultimately sales. That Tide has now hired me 3 more times to run other types of campaigns with very niche kind of personas and products.
That's amazing. So how does someone like Tide or Procter & Gamble find you? Just because you've been around in the industry?
No, Mavely is less than 3 years old, and we have done no real marketing or advertising. We have been asked to speak at several conferences because what we're doing is very different than influencer marketing. It's the idea that like women under 10,000 followers, like what I always say is like real moms and real dads who we did one for a Sunday lawn service. It was like lawn care. We just found dads who love their lawn and they tried a product. They talked about it.
It's not me, but yeah, that's great.
And it was able to drive a lot of authenticity of that brand story. And so through things like your podcast, I have met so many direct to consumer brands, startup brands, service brands, as well as, actual products that come back to Mavely and say, I think for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we'd like to use your team of women.
So do you also then, there's women, are there men influencers,
Yes.
like you mentioned the lawn as well?
Yep, 20% of our community is men, and we started with a lot of women my age. So they were like 40 to 50-year-old women who are on Facebook. Very quickly, we grew to an audience of like the 32-year-old first-time mom on Instagram. Then we did a growth hack with a bunch of college kids, and we grew the 18 to 28-year-old market on TikTok, Snapchat, and that has been a crazy amount of growth and conversion because, TikTok is more than just dance videos. It's a huge channel right now, in some ways competing with YouTube on videos that educate people on products and services.
Tell me about how it works. So a brand's like, we need to get in front of, like you said, soccer moms, whoever, they come to you.
Yep.
What's next?
Well, I'll give you another example. If right now during COVID and the pandemic, so many people bought pets.
Yes.
Okay, we all needed a pet.
COVID dogs. Yeah, totally.
Right. What that did is it actually really drove up the demand at the veterinarian offices. So there is a company called PAWP, P-A-W-P. It's basically virtual pet visits, like a pet, not only pet insurance, but more pet like healthcare. They solve that problem. If you bring your pet right now into the vet, you could be at a 4-hour wait, or you have to just drop your dog off and they get your dog back 2 days later. So they do this all virtually. So they knew there was a huge demand. They just needed to tell their story bigger and faster. So they came to me and they said, Peggy, we'd like to have like 100 women who would get a month free of our pet insurance and our virtual pet visits. And for those that love it, we'd love for them to go out across social and tell that story. So we went ahead and we found 100 women. They got the pet insurance free for about a month. They tested it with their cats and their dogs and, all kinds of animals. And then they started doing posts. So they did a combination of the brand picked Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, where these women did video educating consumers on why this is a viable solution to an in-person vet visit. It ended up driving so many clicks and people who actually signed up for the service that particular brand has continued to use us for future services going forward. So that's an example of the brand will come to us with a need. We create an activation plan. We give the women a product. We educate them. We activate them. And then we ultimately optimize the way that they're working and drive further sales and brand awareness from there.
That's pretty cool. I want to talk about how brands could take advantage of the fourth quarter. I mean, now we're entering into the fourth quarter. If you're listening to this, because people listen to this like 3 years from now, it could be any time. So, I mean, obviously this could help drive sales at any point, but right now we're in the fourth quarter. E-commerce companies specifically, we have stuff coming up. How can people take advantage of more in the fourth quarter?
Well, eMarketer estimated that this fourth quarter and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all the way through December is going to be exceeding $10 billion. So anybody that is listening to this call that has a product or a service to sell, I would love to be able to help them get a slice of that $10 billion. So what we know is you can do all kinds of marketing and advertising, but what we can do for them is actually pick a time frame leading up to obviously this hot season, activate their brand. If it's a fashion brand, beauty brand, a clothing brand, all those things that are really shoppable, even something like Mint Mobile, which is a mobile solution that people are looking to create efficiencies with their mobile solution. That could be something that can be promoted over the holiday season in video, in static posts. And it's not only a kind of like a billboard or a broadcasting across social media, because one user, one person on Instagram that's in our community has anywhere from 10,000 to 250,000 followers. So if we do a campaign for somebody, we typically can reach 250, 500,000 or 1.25 million people by doing our campaigns. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. How did you meet your co-founders? You have Sean O'Brien, Evan Wray.
Tim Connors, who was the investor in my last company, Tim and I wrote this business plan about 3 years ago. We knew that there was two problems that needed to be solved. One problem was direct-to-consumer brands that were looking to acquire customers at a lower cost. So we knew that there was Facebook and Instagram, Google ads continue to rise. So we wanted to help brands acquire customers at a lower cost. The second problem is we know that there's an awful lot of women who talk about products that they like. And if I can give those moms, I always like to say it, but it's not all moms, if I can give those women more money back in their pocket so they can spend more time at the dinner table with their kids doing homework and eating dinner, then I've done a good thing. So how can we help bring women together where they can earn a residual income while we can also bring together brands through a technology platform that creates links across social that convert at a higher rate? So Tim and I came up with that idea. And he offered me about $250,000 to get started. And I said no. And then he offered me about $600,000 to get started. And I said no. And then he came back at about $1 million. And he said, Peggy, why are you saying no? And I said, you know what? To really do this well, I need two strong business partners. I need someone who is completely strategic and can financially manage the books for me. And I need a strong technology officer. So he brought me Evan Wray and Sean O'Brien, and the three of us started with an MVP. And we actually, it was our first time we started was the fourth quarter of 3 years ago, and our sales were through the roof. So from there, we ended up raising $2 million. We've been off and running, and actually we were just recently acquired.
You were? Wow.
Yes.
Congratulations.
So, we're not changing what we do because obviously what we do is working, but we'll now have an opportunity to impact this on a more global scale with a $3 billion business, which I can't yet talk about, but you'll see it.
I was going to ask, can you talk about it?
In the news in another week or two.
I don't want you to say anything you can't say, but that's congratulations with that. And how does the acquisition help you from a structural standpoint? It sounds like there's a lot more resources. What else? I'm sure there was a decision of should we keep running this ourselves or take that?
Well, no, I mean, it was really something that when we first started the company, the name was A Million Moms, because we wanted to impact 1 million moms telling brand stories. So we're at about 60,000. And this is going to give us a chance to hit that 1 million moms much faster. and on a global perspective. But the company that purchases does a lot of manufacturing. So they have so many additional brands that we'll be able to support. And really what we created is we're really a tech company. We're really a tech company that brings the brands and women together to create the integration with the shoppable links across social. So that's really kind of the secret sauce. And really what this acquisition has provided us is most likely we'll see it immediately in our reach. We'll be able to take our technology, integrate it into their community and their brands, and all of a sudden create massive growth for them. And then we're going to get the additional resources that we need so we can continue our mission.
Oftentimes with an acquisition, roles change for the founders. How is yours? Maybe it's too early to tell. How is yours going to change?
I've been through a couple acquisitions before, and very quickly they're like, we don't need the founders anymore. We already have a good thing going. And this company's been amazing. I mean, we're here in Chicago. We're not changing our name. We almost were not even going to do a press release. We're really just going to keep it completely under the radar because we're operating as our own company, and they're giving us complete free reign to go do that, which is amazing. And it's super exciting. Now, something may change, but right now, the brands that I get to work with, I'm super excited to, help them hit those fourth quarter and 2022 goals.
That's great. So, I mean, co-founding and partnership is like a marriage. When you met Sean and Evan, even though they're introduced you trust Tim, you still have to do some vetting. I mean, people set up people on dates all the time and it does not work out. What was it about them that you said, okay, like I'm willing to do this with you guys?
Well, part of it is, I think, knowing myself, and I'm 52 years old and I am a mother of 5. So those are 2 big priorities for me, is maintaining, and I've done several startups. So startups can be really hard, right? And I feel
like you should have gray hair, like with what you've been through.
A lot of sleepless nights and a lot of stress. And I didn't want to sacrifice my children in the process of a startup. So I needed to find what I'm really lucky is both my partners, and actually our entire team is in their 20s. They have a ton of energy and they view social media and technology in a way that's far beyond even what I can imagine. So, but it's also been the hardest probably relationships of my life because they've pushed me to accelerate my growth around processes, operating procedures, ways to scale a business that I had not really thought about in some of my past companies. I mean, the key to success for business is about the numbers, right? And then I've been able to help balance them with a bit of wisdom about the other side of businesses, relationships, and operating within your core values and having empathy in addition to, your EQ is as important as your IQ. So I've been a little bit more of the heart space and the people part of the business and the face of the business, where they've done a great job of helping drive forward the scalability.
It probably helped too, Peggy. It seemed like they had a successful company and a successful exit with Swift Media too. So they had real experience in the space. Yes.
And then to be in your 20s and to have already sold the 3 companies, that's why Evan and Sean were both rising stars under 30 years old by Forbes magazine.
How do it seems, again, you put together this amazing advisor group for the company. Talk about some of that and, maybe a lesson or advice you've gotten from Tim.
Oh,
Connors.
Yes, Tim Connors has given me so much great advice. But if you look at like our advisory board, I mean, we have obviously somebody who's very strong with a proven history and success in tech, which Tim is. We also have people that are in this like e-commerce, direct selling, direct to consumer kind of space. We also have people that are, the breadth of investing in other direct to consumer kind of companies, so they understand the needs of those brands, which means they also have connections and reach. I think some of the best advice that Tim has ever given me was probably around the idea of never undervaluing the EQ. The idea of having empathy for your customers, for your employees, for your business partners, because every single one of us brings baggage to work, and then every single one of us goes home with the heart of our business a part of our family, but it cannot consume and overlap and take over the relationships within our marriages and our children and the ways in which we serve in the world. So Tim has really encouraged me to keep a balanced life, but never underestimate the importance of empathy and EQ for success.
And how did you meet Haley?
Haley was when we were looking to do another round, starting line out of Chicago. We wanted to have an investor here in Chicago, which is where we're located, so that the three of us as founders could meet with like a bank of smart investors who would challenge us. So every single month we sat down and we would go through our KPIs and our OKRs, and we would really show, here's where we're going. Here's some of our success this month. Here's where we're having challenges. Where might we need help? And then they helped hold us accountable to our long-term and short-term goals.
I love it. And then how do you choose? It looks like from the page, there's 6 advisors on the website. How do you choose 6 opposed to 4, opposed to, listen, let's get 2 more people. I think that'd be good. How'd you come to those people and that number?
Well, very specifically, we wanted people that wanted to be a part of this, regardless if they were any kind of an equity holder of any sort, that they really cared about us, our mission, and where we were going, and they were willing to share their knowledge to help us grow. And, obviously, if there's things that we could do to help benefit what they were doing in their own, businesses, we obviously were doing that. But typically, somewhere between 3 and 6 advisors is about as much, input that you want based on the size of where we were at, to get the accountability and the kind of intellectual property that they had, their knowledge, so that we can apply it to what we were doing and where we were going.
How do you structure advisor meetings? I don't know. Do you do on a one-on-one? Do you do group?
Well, Evan does a lot of our advisor meetings, and so he does a lot of one-on-ones. But then he also sends a quarterly update about basically every aspect of the business.
I love it. So what I want to do is, last question, Peggy. And first of all, thank you. Thanks for sharing what you do. It's pretty amazing. And I love, you really help relationships at scale, brand relationships with the people who love the brands. And before I ask the question, where should people go? I know people can go to joinmavely.com. That's one site, is joinmavely.com. Where else should we point people online to learn more?
Well, I would love it if people would like to actually review my LinkedIn page, Peggy O'Flaherty. And you're welcome to also email me, Peggy@Mavely, Mavely.life. And we can set up some time to review what are your brand goals for the fourth quarter or 2022. And I'm certain I can curate the right men or women within our community to tell your brand story.
What type of companies are ideal?
So, on social media, for a lack of a better way of saying it, it's really sexy to talk about hair care, skincare, makeup, clothing, shoes, jewelry. That's a big thing that people are buying for the holidays, right? And we do a lot of that: fashion, beauty, hair care, skincare. But the other thing is that there's a lot of service businesses that I love telling those stories, like PAW, the veterinarian services. We recently signed a deal with Amazon. So AWS Cloud Services wanted to get the message out that AWS Cloud offers free training and certification, but people don't know about that. So we wanted people to tell those stories. We have another company called Sprout. It's basically a new way to do life insurance. So we're telling their story. So there are service-based businesses. Another one is big, a lot of home cookware, lifestyle lawn products that really need, because they're not maybe as sexy as lip gloss and makeup, but they need people to be telling their story to drive that brand awareness. And so we're a really good fit because nobody is really doing B2B micro influencer marketing.
Love it. So last question, Peggy, is, over the years in your career, you're a wealth of knowledge, and I'd love to hear resources that you love, whether it's a book, like some of your favorite books, it could be just a software you like, or all of the above.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The couple books. One, there's a great book called Hooked, Hooked. Hooked is all about how do you make your product, your brand go viral. A lot of people look at this book Hooked and say, well, things like social media, like Twitter or Facebook, that creates addictive habits. Okay, you can say that, but their products also went viral. So Hooked is one great book. My other great book I love is called The Messy Middle. Everybody needs to read this book because when you first start a company, it can be so romantic and exciting. You have tons of energy. And then when you sell a company, there's a lot of sleepless nights, but there's a ton of energy and it's exciting. But in the middle, that's where the hard work happens. And it's hard. So I read stories about like Fresh Green and Netflix. And it's a lot of great examples of recent companies that you'll hear their messy middle. My last book that I really recommend is called, it's called The Pope and the CEO. And it's about how do we take in business our faith and apply it in our core values across the relationships we build.
I love it. Peggy, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone check out joinmavely.com and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.